Today we're going to answer three related questions. 1. Why did the United States declare war on Germany in 1917? 2. Why did Woodrow Wilson believe this was a war to end all wars? 3. And why did Wilson's wartime economic policies, his flirtation with socialism, actually hurt American war production rather than help it? And yes, by the end of this lecture, I will make the case that Woodrow Wilson deserves his spot on the short list of worst presidents in American history. That list is competitive, but Wilson brings a strong resume. First, when World War I broke out in August 1914, most Americans wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. Europe, as usual, had turned a diplomatic misunderstanding into a bloodbath. Wilson himself captured the prevailing mood when he declared that the United States would remain neutral in thought as well as in action, which, historically speaking, is one of the most naive sentences ever uttered by a president. Don't misunderstand the situation Americans wanted: neutrality. The U.S. had no formal alliances with European powers. Over 600,000 Americans had been killed in the Civil War only 50 years earlier. Immigrants from Germany, Ireland, Britain, and Eastern Europe all had divided loyalties. George Washington's farewell warning against entangling alliances still mattered. But Wilson demonstrated he didn't understand that the United States already had strong ties to England and France. True neutrality was a pipe dream. And to make matters worse, in 1914, the U.S. Army ranked 17th in the world behind Portugal. Let that sink in. While Wilson preached neutrality, American money quietly took sides. Between 1914 and 1917, U.S. trade with the Allies increased from $825 million to over $3 billion. Loans from American banks to Britain and France exceeded $2 billion. Loans to Germany, practically zero. This wasn't ideology. It was geography and naval power. Britain controlled the seas, Germany did not. So when Wilson said America was neutral, Germany understandably replied, "You could have fooled us." Germany's problem was simple. Britain was strangling it with a naval blockade. Germany's solution was not subtle. Unrestricted submarine warfare. German U-boats attacked any ship entering British waters, civilian or not, which in 1915 led to a crisis. The Lusitania, a British passenger liner sunk by a German U-boat, leading to 1,198 killed, which included 128 Americans. Germany argued the ship was carrying munitions, which it was. Wilson responded with sternly worded letters, the 1915 equivalent of a strongly worded tweet. But here's the key point. Wilson did not declare war after the Lusitania. Why? Because Americans still didn't want one. Germany temporarily backed off submarine attacks in 1915 to 1916, and Wilson was re-elected in 1916 on the slogan, "He kept us out of war," which aged very poorly. After Wilson's re-election, two events pushed the U.S. into war. First, Germany resumed unrestricted submarine warfare. In January 1917, Germany resumed full submarine attacks. Germany made the calculation that they could force the British out of the war before the United States joined the war. Germany gambled and lost. Result: over 500 American ships sunk, millions of tons of shipping destroyed. American sailors and civilians killed second. The Zimmermann telegram. A telegram sent to Mexico by the foreign minister of Germany, looking for allies if the United States joined the war in Europe. It was intercepted by the British and given to the U.S. Germany promised Mexico, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, in exchange for attacking the United States. Nothing says good diplomacy like asking Mexico to invade Texas while you're already losing a world war. Public opinion flipped almost overnight. On April 2nd, 1917, Wilson addressed Congress. He did not say, "Germany attacked us," or that American ships were sunk. Instead, he delivered one of the most ideological war speeches in U.S. history. The world must be made safe for democracy. This is the moment American foreign policy took a sharp turn from national interest to global moral crusade. Wilson framed the war as a fight for democracy, a fight against autocracy, a moral mission for mankind, a war fought for humanity. This wasn't a war to defend America. It was a war to redeem the world. And whenever politicians start talking like missionaries, hold on to your wallet. Wilson genuinely believed war could be eliminated, democracy would prevent future conflict, International organizations could replace power politics. This belief culminated in the ill-conceived The 14 Points and the League of Nations. Wilson imagined a world governed by international law, collective security, moral persuasion. Unfortunately, Europe operated on nationalism and rivalry between nation-states that has had at least 1,000 years to legitimately hate each other. The Treaty of Versailles humiliated Germany based off of a corruption Wilson's principles and laid the groundwork for World War II. So much for ending all wars. In addition to Wilson's misguided decision to join the conflict, he hamstrings American effectiveness during the war with what I call Wilson's domestic disaster. Wilson believed private industry was chaotic. Markets were inefficient. Government experts could plan production better. This led to an explosion of federal agencies, such as the War Industries Board, headed by Bernard Baruch. Its job: allocate raw materials, set production priorities, fix prices, coordinate industry. In theory, efficiency. In practice, bureaucracy. And here is the rub, backed by results. 1. Central planning slowed innovation. Businesses waited for approval. Managers filled out paperwork instead of producing goods. One historian described it as government by committee. 2. Price controls reduced output. Price ceilings discouraged producers from expanding production. If you cap profits, you cap incentive. That's not ideology. That's economics 101. 3. Government took over railroads. The federal takeover of railroads in 1917 increased delays, reduced efficiency, ran massive deficits. After the war, the railroads were returned in worse condition than before. 4. Agricultural controls. Farmers were told what to grow, how much to grow, and at what price. Result: shortages, waste, resentment. One farmer famously said the government treated him like a hired hand on his own land. Despite massive spending, U.S. troops arrived in large numbers only in mid-1918. Most Allied fighting had already been done. The war ended 5 months after major U.S. deployment. Private industry succeeded despite Wilson's controls, not because of them. After the war, government agencies were dismantled, production rebounded, the 1920s economy exploded once controls were removed, and let's not forget the Espionage Act, 1917, the Sedition Act, 1918. Americans were jailed for criticizing the war, criticizing the draft, saying unkind things about the president. Wilson believed dissent was dangerous, which is ironic, considering he claimed to be fighting for democracy. So why was Wilson one of the worst president? Woodrow Wilson lied about neutrality, entered a war with vague moral goals, centralized economic power, suppressed civil liberties, failed to secure a lasting peace, his greatest legacy, an expanded federal state, a belief in global crusades, a century of unintended consequences. As historian Paul Johnson put it, Wilson was the father of modern liberal interventionism and its disasters. Thank you.